we saw Maleficent, Mistress of Evil, which is the latest movie from Disney. It's actually a sequel. The original Maleficent film came out in 2014, I think.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Starring Angelina Jolie, of course, and it was directed by Joachim Roning. I actually probably just mispronounced that all the way, but yes, and that just came out this past week. Again, a sequel to the original Maleficent. So it's been a bit of a wait since the last movie, and I remember going to see Maleficent back in 2014. Really liking it. I was actually kind of surprised because some like Disney live adaptations, like I was kind of a little iffy on, but that original Maleficent was really good. And so this next movie is, as a follow-up. I was really excited to see it, man. So
Yeah.
I'm actually, interested to hear your thoughts on the movie. So as we sort of dive into just our general sort of feedback for Maleficent, Mistress of Evil.
Yeah, man. So Maleficent was so first going up. The first Maleficent one was just, to me, something Disney had never done before. Right? You come out with this movie that's named after a villain, which is super rare, I think, for Disney, right? You're always on the hero side or the princess side or the, on the good side. And Disney says, hey, we're going to give you this film that's named after the villain and tell it from the villain's point of view. And the first Maleficent, small spoiler, but she starts as a really happy little girl. And she's just a fairy, right? And all this stuff happens. Eventually, she kind of is forced to turn evil in a way, right? Like as protection of her own self, as protection of the fairyland she comes from, right? The Moors, right? So at the end of the first Maleficent, we find out that Maleficent really is, what's the word? Heartfelt, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, she's actually a caring person.
She's actually a caring person, and that's kind of how the first Maleficent ends, right? She's a caring person. We see her as a villain in Sleeping Beauty, right, in which she comes from. But here we see her as a caring person. So here we are, beginning of Maleficent, Mistress of Evil. And apparently the rumor is that she's still a bad person. Even though she went through all this in the first Maleficent, right, to do what she had to do.
Yeah.
And she's technically, we've seen her be a good person, but the rumor was pushed that she's a bad person. And so just knowing that, again, I really like this as a take from Disney, because it's like this villain that people just keep making out to be the bad guy, right? Like, she's really not a villain, though. She's a good person. And I think that by itself, that base is really cool to me.
Yeah, they definitely they play with that a lot because, like you mentioned, we traditionally know her as a villain, but sort of the premise of these movies is to I think look at all sides of the situation, right? And there's actually characters that are probably a little bit more evil than she actually is, and she really is not evil at all. Like she actually is a really heartfelt and caring person. Sometimes has a cold exterior, it can be a little bit tough on the outside, but I think that's due to circumstances. And I think Angelina Jolie brings a really interesting take to that. So this movie, it's out, like I said, it's been, it's about 2014, 2019, that's 5 years in between the movies.
5 years difference.
Right now on Rotten Tomatoes, it's sitting at a 40% critic score.
Goodness.
And then it's actually the complete opposite for the audience. It's sitting at a 96%, and it has a cinema score. So according to audiences, they really like this sequel, this follow-up. But critics are not so happy with it, I would say. I gotta say, man, I wasn't the biggest fan of this movie. I was disappointed. I noticed myself through the movie not really feeling invested in it as much as I would have liked to. The story seemed flat to me, and this isn't a spoiler. You can sort of see this in the trailer. She comes across essentially her people. Like, she finds like the fairies, the winged and horned fairies,
the dark
like
fairies.
the dark fairies are like her people, and that's a big part of the story, is what I'll say. And it was interesting to sort of go that route, but I don't know if the potential there was truly capitalized on, and I don't know. It just for me, like, I guess it was a fine movie, but there was nothing significant necessarily that stood out that just made me feel like, oh yeah, we totally needed this. Like, after I was done watching it, I felt like the first film, I had gotten everything that I wanted to see from this story. And I don't know if the second movie added that much. The one thing I will say is that there were certain visual things and just like, sort of the set pieces that are present in the movie that I do really like. I think, on a big blockbuster, sort of movie level, it does a really good job of like presenting you with like this big fantastical world, and it does some incredible things, but the story itself just didn't compel me, or it wasn't as compelling as I would have liked it to be. So I kind of walked away feeling just like okay about it.
Interesting. I think I did like this film more than a lot of other critics did. I won't say it deserves a 96 audience score, but I did like it, right? Like, I actually, there's a lot of moments in this film where I thought the action was really good. I thought, first, Angelina Jolie was sensational, as always. And Michelle Pfeiffer, boy, she know what she showed up to do all the time. Even, I do agree with you that the story wasn't that compelling, but I do think part of the reason I liked it is it kind of felt like a story I had never seen before. And there were things happening that I kind of never seen before, right? That third act, I told you about this. It kind of, there was a lot of stuff that reminded me of like some crazy Game of Thrones sequence, right? Like,
it was a huge third act.
I was like, what is going on here?
That they had,
And like the parts of the movie is like, characters maybe they didn't use as much, or we talked about a couple editing issues in there that was like, I don't know exactly why they did that. But again, I think it was a very beautiful movie, and I actually think in terms of a sequel, I thought it was actually good. Like if you put it like that, right? Like Disney is known for having sequels that no one wanted and it wasn't good. Like they do it all the time, like Mulan 2, and you know what I mean. Like, but I think this one can definitely hold better than a lot of those other sequels, right? If you put Disney sequels against this one, I think this one definitely will do way better. And I also think it's important maybe to even see this one on the big screen,
Yeah, it is it can be a good theatrical experience for sure. Like if you're really into this world, if you're really into these characters, it's definitely something that like you can enjoy on the big screen, because there's, again, like the effects and the costumes and the set design and all of that stuff is like, it's huge. It's like it's a huge movie with a big cast. There's Chiwetel Ejiofor is in the movie. Like you mentioned, Michelle Pfeiffer. There's a lot of really strong actors and actresses. I think that was one of my other things. Like, it did feel like some of the supporting characters were underused. That was kind of, I would have liked to see more from a few people. And I think there may or may not be potential in the future for that. I don't know if they do a third one. I guess it depends on, where this one goes in terms of like the box office. But there are definitely some good things to like about it. Like that, the final acts like kind of brought me back into the movie, because I felt myself out of it for a long time. I was just sort of sitting there, just like, okay, like where are we going? What is this? Like, I just kind of felt like we were just being led along this journey, but it wasn't that compelling. But then the final act brought me back, and I was like, okay, this is good now. Very mixed experience for me, but definitely like not a bad movie by any means. Like, it's still fine, and I think like if you like the first one, you can still find a good amount to like about this one. So
and there was still some questions they didn't answer, which was super weird. And where were all the kids?
I don't know. That was actually kind of weird. Like,
do kids not like? Have kids even seen Sleeping Beauty? Maybe that's a problem.
Like kids today?
Yeah, that could be a problem.
I would hope so. Like, that's one of the most recognizable animated movies ever. I would hope.
I don't know, man.
That they would listen.
People don't have physical movies no more. And Disney Plus is just now about to come out.
I'm gonna tell Gen Z right now, like, if you have not seen that, like, you should probably see it. I mean, but that's weird, because they used to show that in school back in the day. Like,
definitely not no more.
That was they probably not.
They ain't doing
that
no more.
Nah. What do they watch in school nowadays?
I have no idea.
YouTube? Do they just go to YouTube and just like,
I don't know.
We're gonna watch it?
I'm curious what movies are important enough to teachers for them to watch.
Because that's
12 Years a Slave.
That's actually, I hope not. I mean, it's a great movie, but
that's why I feel like you're watching school, right? Like, it's like a teacher would make you watch 12 Years a Slave.
I had some interesting teachers that showed us like really good movies that, like, I don't think you would normally think you would watch in like school, whether it be middle school or high school. But like, I went to like Catholic school. This is a big tangent, but whatever. We're here. I went to Catholic school, and like my theology class, we watched Forrest Gump. Like,
what?
I don't even know the connection. I don't remember if there was a connection, but we watched Forrest Gump, and
that's super random.
It wasn't my first time seeing it, but it was my first time. Like, it was in high school, so like I had saw it when I was younger, but I couldn't comprehend everything that I had saw. So like when I saw it in high school, I was like, oh wow, this is like actually a perfect movie, which, you know, a lot of people think that, but
Fried shrimp, sauteed shrimp, boiled shrimp. That's my favorite part.
he went on and on and on. But yeah, that was a huge tangent. Anyway, I don't know what they're watching in school. Yeah, if you haven't seen Sleeping Beauty, you should probably definitely watch that before seeing this.
I feel like Maleficent is full of adults who have seen Sleeping Beauty, or like people don't want to go see it. The theater's full of people who have seen Sleeping Beauty, and have seen the first Maleficent, which I don't feel like it's a lot of kids.
That's true.
I feel like it's just a bunch of just us,
yeah,
millennials, and I feel like a bunch of millennials were in the theater with us.
You might be right. So I guess the key is to subscribe to Disney Plus.
They'll show up to Frozen though.
Yeah, well,
there's about to be so many kids in there.
Oh goodness, I will avoid all matinee showings. I'll see Frozen at 10:30 if I can, so that I don't have to deal with little children.
We'll be good opening night.
I hope so.
I think we'll be okay opening night.
Yeah, they're usually not going on Thursday nights.
It's a Thursday night. And parents ain't about to take them kids.
That's very true.
I would take my kids, but I'm a movie head.
Yeah, well, you know, most of them, they have to like plan a family gathering because it's going to be like $100 trip considering how expensive movies are. So
that's true.
But yeah, maybe we'll avoid that. But anyway, Maleficent, Mistress of Evil is out now.